First, two developments in the Middle East. The US Defense Secretary has confirmed that Washington sent troops to the Jordan-Syria border in what's seen as America's growing involvement in the conflict now. Leon Panetta says the task team is there to enhance Jordan's capabilities in case violence spills over from Syria. His Ganit Chikan's got the latest from Washington.
According to Defense Secretary Leon Panetta, they sent the troops to Jordan-Syrian border in case violence escalates in Syria and spills over the border. Leon Panetta did not go into details as to how many troops and so on, but another U.S. defense official speaking on condition of anonymity said the forces are made up of 100 military personnel and other personnel who stayed on in Jordan after attending an annual exercise in May. And several dozen more have flown in since. They are operating from the joint U.S.-Jordanian military center north of Amman that Americans have used for years. The news about U.S. military personnel so close to Syria, that is boots on the ground, of course suggests an escalation in the U.S. military involvement in the conflict, even as Washington pushes back on any suggestion of a direct intervention in Syria. But Jordan is not the only place where the U.S. has military presence. If we look at Syria and the U.S. military presence in the region, we see that Syria is pretty much surrounded militarily. Also, tension is growing on the border between Syria and Turkey after several days of shelling. This Wednesday, Turkey's military chief vowed to respond with more force. That is a day after Nato said it stood ready to defend Turkey. But this latest development with U.S. troops in Jordan comes with a U.S. presidential election less than a month away, at a time when Mitt Romney, Barack Obama's challenger, is criticizing the president for not being aggressive enough, for quote-unquote sitting on the sidelines, for missing the opportunity to topple Assad and, quote, deliver that defeat to Iran. Yes, he actually said that. So it's not clear whether this latest announcement about Jordan is the administration's way of showing teeth in this election campaign, or whether an intervention in Syria is really coming soon. One of the reasons why the rebels refuse to settle for a negotiated solution through dialogue is the signal that they get, that sense that support is on the way, that there will be an intervention. But everybody understands without a negotiated solution, the bloodshed will continue. So the signals that the rebels are getting, including the news about U.S. troops standing by across the border, could be making it that much harder to come to that negotiated solution.
Ganit Chikan. Well, independent journalist Niall Bowie thinks border protection is just a pretext to press harder for a change of the Syrian regime.
Throughout the duration of the conflict in Syria, we've heard a lot of talk about the creation of humanitarian corridors or buffer zones along the Turkish border, and now we're hearing reports of the same being established on the Jordanian border. So ostensibly, that is what the American personnel in Jordan are there to do. But one needs to acknowledge the fact that this is not the policy of the Turkish government, nor is it the policy of the Jordanian government. The U.S. think tank, the Brookings Institute, in March 2012 published a report titled Assessing Regime Change Options in Syria, where they specifically cite the creation of a buffer zone or humanitarian corridor as a means to base certain rebel groups in the region to project force towards the Syrian government in an attempt to topple it. So that appears to be what is playing out at the moment.